Bought one of these bulk supply penetrant fluids that comes with a wee bottle, because I'm going through just disgusting amounts of WD-40 at the moment and it's not really that good. So bulk buy penetrant. I don't really know what it is other than it's just penetrant fluid, but it looks like whiskey and it really smells like Jack Daniels. I'm starting to question whether or not if I just add some Coke to this, it could make for an interesting build. I mean, it'll be an interesting build if I drink it with Coke regardless, because much like any time I drink Jack Daniels, I'll end up in the hospital. But we'll see if generic penetrant fluid is as good as the leading brands. If it penetrates, it will be, because the leading brands tend to not. There we go. Budgets. Another day, another level of pain on this. So, as you probably guessed, we're trying to get the subframe off and it's not going to work. Because, if you observe here, subframe bolt 1, subframe bolt 2, that will be a sheared subframe captive nut. So that is now spinning freely and is probably, if I can't find a solution, going to need chopped. Unfortunately, the problem with chopping it is the fuel leak. So we're going to have to look at something more drastic, because even if we do chop it, when it comes time to putting the subframe back on, we still need to work out what we're going to do with that captive nut. So we're going to have to chop into the boot floor to get access to this. This is the boot floor. Now, how to work out where this captive nut's going to live. You'll see here there's two ridges. This is the top of this chassis rail for the back. So if we follow this along, we'll know that in the middle of here is going to be the middle of where the chassis rail is. The middle of this will be where the captive nut lives. The question is, where along all here? And that's a bloody good question. So we're going to have to do some math. But that's easy done as well, because without having to get involved with math, we can actually look at the profile of this chassis leg. Now, you'll see here, this subframe is straight, i.e. parallel on both sides. In the chassis rail, it's going to have to be at two sections where it's parallel from one side to the other. So straight off the bat, parallel 1, parallel 2, because that section there is pretty damn straight. Look for some clues here, right? Try to work out, I don't want to butcher this, right? I want to drill it right. So I've been looking in here for something that's going to be giving me as close to a marker as to where I should drill it. Hello? You look like you go through the whole bodywork. So, where do you live outside? Aha! 10mm or so away from where that bolt runs. If I was to go 10mm in, this suspicious looking print, which I've had a look and I don't think it's been cut before, but it's a pretty good indicator that that's going to be where the first of the captive bolts live. Now, if I drill through this and it's bang on, all I need to do is measure the distance between the bolts and the subframe, project that hole to there, and I think we've nailed this. Drilled our inspection hole, and as you can see, there's bugger all down there. So then I looked a little bit deeper. That's right. There's a separate skin. So, we're cutting a big hole. know, there's a lot of schmutz. I'm not seeing a lot of holes. Ooh. That's a lot of damage. Crusty as f, but it's pretty solid. That's a job that should have been easy peasy lemon squeezy and has now become difficult, lemon difficult. But she's off. Need to take more stuff off, and then we need to look at the fuel tank. That is one big pile of rusty and I've not even started breaking the rust off from under here yet. That is just what's fallen off with a hammer. So, another episode of Tools and Track Academy. This time we're going to show you how a rear handbrake shoe assembly for an Impreza should go together. So that you, but let's face it, me, several months from now when I'm trying to work out how these go back together and I've got no idea, I can't put them back together. So, what you're going to look for is, you've got two retaining pins here. They will locate but not hold the shoes onto the backing plate. On the bottom, you've got one big spring which holds these two together, and the adjuster latch which sits in like that. That will keep that tensioned as these shoes, which by the way, don't even exist on this one, wear away. On the top, you'll have a weird square looking spring that keeps tension on this support bracket which goes between the upper shoes and acts against the lever that pulls on the handbrake. On the top, you'll have two springs that go like that, which go around the pin with a plate that goes behind the two springs, and that holds the top of these on. The biggest hit on this video will probably be me weeks from now when I'm like, how do you put these back together? Now you know. Obviously not, but it can sit there just now. Well, that's a lot of rust. However, it's more or less all come apart. I'm going to have to do an assessment and all this, see what I can save, see what we can't, and ultimately we still have to get that fuel tank out of the Impreza. Hello, and welcome to another poorly lit episode of what the hell is he actually trying to do under this car. I can't quite see or make it out at all. It's time to drop the fuel tank out. So, first things first, I need to disconnect it from the car. I mean, I'm going to have fun with rusty bolts, obviously, but there's also fuel lines and stuff. So, as we know, where the leak is, there's 3 lines that run in here. Now, I'm probably going to be able to disconnect most of them from underneath the car, but I'm going to have to try and keep them in order because I'm sure that there's a sequence that these should be in. The one on the far left, I'm fairly sure is fuel supply because it's A, the biggest, and B, has the fanciest clips. Next to that, I'm going to take as fuel return because it's also a fairly chunky line. The one on the far right, going to this piddly wee hose here, I'm going to guess it's for the evap system. I know for a fact I'm replacing this, so I'm really not getting hung up by snipping the line. So the next line I need to deal with is this substantial and leaking fuel line, which I'm pleased to say I've just cracked, so that solves a lot of problems, doesn't it? Right, I'm going to let this guy just drain for a bit. I'm going to keep an eye on it though, because I've just got a bit of a concern it might be siphoning rather than dripping off the exhaust. I reckon I can probably get this off without breaking it. Well, this is a long line. It's coming at least. That's a start. Thing. Ah! It's also a previously replaced hose when you get the straps off. That'll be fun. We need to undo these rather rotten looking straps, which I might also be adding to the shopping basket. So you might be asking, viewers, why am I doing this to an Impreza? Which is a good question. I'm not a particularly large fan of rallying. I've got a lot of respect for obviously the Colin McRae, Richard Byrne stuff, but it's not really why I bought an Impreza. I don't know what it is about Imprezas that I like. They just work, which is a strange thing to say when I'm trying to fix one that doesn't. As a car, it's just like an amazing toolbox. It's function over form. Nothing's really on the car that doesn't need to be there. It's got 4 seats, 4 doors. You know, you can tell it's a bit of an agricultural background. You can also tell this isn't fucking coming off either. I need to try and hammer this a bit. And whilst function over form also applies to cars like Skodas from the 90s and whatnot, this one also has form as well. For such a utilitarian car, it still looks like it's got purpose. You know, it's mean, makes that noise, performs really well. There's nothing really here that doesn't need to be here. I think it's a great all-rounder. Like an everyman's car. So long as every man really likes dealing with rusty old shit. FYI. So you know what I'm dealing with here. Like I'm not psyching this up for the camera. I mean really, what chance have I got if that is the state it's in? That is absolutely toast. I never really kind of gelled with the Evos because they're a bit too complicated. But these guys, these are simplicity, proper simplicity. Agricultural 4-wheel drive setup, but it also handled well. You didn't really notice it too much. The engines have a history of being a bit unpleasant on reliability, but I don't remember Evos ever being any better. It's a hard one to describe. It's hard to describe why you like any car, to be honest. I mean, obviously I've got the TVR and the low cost that we're building, but this thing, I guess it's just a childhood hero. And yes, you shouldn't meet your heroes, and in this instance I've proven that point. But we've got the technology. We can rebuild her. Ah. Well, f***. There we go. One removed and temporarily blocked up fuel tank. So the big question is it dead or is it not? It's dead. I mean, even if it's not, and we in some way, shape or form patch this up, why? Well, we just went to all this effort to pull this tank out, and look at it. A patch fix is just not the idea here. So I think we can add a fuel tank to the shopping list as well. But that's it. That's as deep as I said I was going to go in the back end for removing stuff. We still have, obviously, a lot of rust to deal with on the chassis. So next episode, we're going to give a poke about. I'm going to see if there's anything we can save on there, and if there's going to be welding required, which I know there's going to be, obviously, with the stuff we've cut, but there may be more bits and pieces we're going to have to address. Also, fuel lines, they're closed as we've established, so I'll need to get some of them ordered too. In fact, in fairness, I've got a lot of stuff I need to order, so I'm going to have to go onto eBay right now and sort something out. But that's all for another episode. For the moment, I'd like to say a big thanks to everyone who's gone up the side of the screen and now on the Patreon list, helping not so much madness like this, but the low-cost project that we've got going on in the studio in the background. Appreciate all your support, guys. Everyone who's just joined us, hope you're enjoying this. If you are, like, subscribe, do all that sort of stuff that YouTube tells you to do. And that's it, for the moment, at least. We'll be back on this once I've got a great big eBay shopping list sorted out. Until then, see you there, guys. Just putting some f***ing bolts back in. I don't want to press record now, but yeah, joys of working under a f***ing motor is that they just work. which is a strange thing to say while I'm trying to fix one that doesn't. I see, for some reason my plus gas is now stopped aerosoling, that's good. This is tin that is. There it goes, back. If it drops one more bit of rust in my face though, I might be renegotiating. Seriously man, there's so much rust under here. It's bananas!